President Donald Trump is sworn into office. How his day one actions will impact Wisconsinites.
And the latest from Washington as lawmakers in the Capitol and here at home prepare to work with the new Trump administration.
And incredibly frigid temperatures out there tonight. How some are trying to work through it while schools in the area close down. That is all coming up on News 3 Now at 10. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Carlson.
And I'm Eric Franke. Thanks for joining us. We have a lot to cover tonight, from the dangerously cold temperatures to an historic presidential inauguration. But first, a look at your first warn forecast. Madison and 120 more school districts have canceled classes for tomorrow.
And alert day conditions are expected to continue. Let's check in with Alex to find out when we'll see the worst of it.
Yeah, the worst of it's going to be tonight. This is going to be the thick of it. This is what we've been mentioning for days and days now, that the worst of these cold temperatures would be overnight tonight going on into Tuesday. We have extreme cold warnings for all of southern Wisconsin. This means business because we're looking at the potential for wind chills getting well below 30 below zero, in some cases 35, and maybe some isolated areas approaching 40 below zero. This is why we have alert day conditions that we've been highlighting now for days, saying Tuesday morning is likely going to be the worst of it, as I just mentioned, and that very likely will verify across southern Wisconsin. Right now, the wind chill is minus 20 in Madison. That's that dangerous threshold already, and we've got a whole night to go with temperatures still yet to fall, with temperature in the wind chill department almost as cold as 30 below zero up towards Marquette and Green Lake counties. Right now, minus 5 in Madison, minus 10 in Camp Douglas, and minus 7 in Platteville. So those thermometers, the actual air temperatures, are falling quickly out there. We have minus 3, minus 4, minus 5 out there for actual air temperatures in Dane County. Overnight lows, minus 10 to minus 15 degrees below zero, with those dangerously cold wind chills as we head to Tuesday morning. Also, I mentioned in the 6 o'clock newscast, we're in a snow drought. What are our chances for snow in the upcoming future? We'll talk about that as well in Maine Weather.
Sounds good. Thank you, Alex. Donald Trump is officially back in the Oval Office.
He is the second president in U.S. history to serve a second term non-consecutively. Supporters, cabinet members, and political leaders, including the 4 other living presidents, packed inside the Capitol Rotunda to watch Trump become the 47th president of the United States. The day full of celebratory events across D.C., including a first honors ceremony to celebrate all branches of the military. During his speech in the Rotunda, the president promised an agenda that will roll out quickly in the hours ahead.
I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry, violent, and totally unpredictable.
The day of events was capped off with 3 inaugural balls.
And for much of his campaign, now President Donald Trump promised day one action.
And now that the day is here, our Maddie Heimsch breaks down those immediate actions and what they mean for everyday Americans.
It's not uncommon for a president to be sworn in and immediately sign executive orders, signaling their top priorities and oftentimes reversing the work of the previous administration. So what is an executive order, and what exactly did Trump sign today?
So an executive order is a document produced by the president that interprets laws that have already been passed.
The papers you see President Trump mark with black Sharpie today aren't new law.
Any executive order has to be tied to something that's existing already.
But that doesn't mean they won't have new and immediate consequences. So how will these day one orders play out in practice? Let's take a look at a few examples.
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border.
So it likely means that agencies that are dealing with immigration, that deal with border enforcement and the like, might be getting more resources.
Many will trickle down by action.
You never know when the federal government will come knocking on your door.
Others by funding.
There are only 2 genders, male and female.
This could have far-reaching implications for any place that receives federal dollars and then wants to spend those dollars on, say, schooling or sports in schools or medical care for people who are transgender.
And some already constitutional rights.
I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America.
But potentially serving as signals of intention for the next 4 years.
I think what it means is that there are going to be very little consequences for things that the president says and does that are not true, and that content being regulated or corrected on various social media platforms.
Along with rescinding dozens of orders signed by Biden over the past 4 years, Trump's signature marked other directives, like requiring federal workers to return to full-time, in-person work, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement, and placing a hiring freeze on federal employees.
What's happening is notable for how many there are and how far some of them seem to be stretching existing law.
Now, courts may strike down executive orders if they find the president had overstepped constitutional authority. Congress can also overturn executive orders by passing conflicting legislation. And of course, the president who issued an order can later revoke it.
Thank you, Maddie. In the meantime, the president has commuted the sentences of more than 1,000 nonviolent and violent January 6th defendants. More than 140 police officers were injured during the 7-hour-long siege back in 2021. Now, this will likely include cases that have yet to go to trial. A presidential pardon, though, doesn't erase a person's criminal record or conviction, but a pardon does restore civil rights. And now former President Biden has issued pardons as well. They include General Mark Milley, Dr. Anthony Fauci, as well as members of the congressional committee who investigated the January 6th Capitol attack. The pardons also protect several outspoken critics of Donald Trump. Now, in his statement, Biden said the pardons do not mean that any recipient is guilty of a crime, and none are required to accept these preemptive pardons.
And the inauguration making an impact back here in Wisconsin. Political
reporter Will Keneally has more on how today charts a path for the next 4 years.
We've got many challenges. President Biden has left a real mess for us to clean up.
It's a very different political scenario for Republicans. As of 11 o'clock Central, the GOP has unified control of the federal government.
It's not going to be simple. It's going to take some time, so I'm asking people to be patient.
Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson has a game plan, though, for that new administration.
I'm going to be focusing on the top priorities, preventing massive automatic tax increase, bringing down the total government spending to pre-pandemic levels, and secure our border and make America safe.
While some Wisconsin lawmakers were in D.C., Dane County Congressman Mark Pocan was here in Madison at Centro Hispano behind me here, meeting with community advocates to chart a course ahead for this new Trump administration.
I thought it was a far more important use of my time to get around the district and talk to populations of folks that I'm afraid are at risk under a Trump presidency.
Pocan today meeting with federal workers, LGBTQ advocates, and Centro Hispano, talking about ways to help support local residents.
I think our local communities, the city of Madison, Dane County, need to step up and do a lot more because the federal government's not going to be there to do the right thing, and I think they'll do that.
I think I've gone through a lot of feelings since the election. Grief, sadness. I'm at a point where I want to celebrate our joy, and I want to celebrate our humanity. And I hope the message about our community really centers on that moving forward.
President Donald Trump's inauguration ceremony was pushed inside because of all this cold weather there, too. A weather system dropped more than half a foot of snow on parts of the Northeast. The snowiest inauguration, though, was back in 1909 with 10 inches of snow when President Taft was sworn in. The warmest was in 1981 when the temperature was 55 degrees for the first swearing in of President Reagan. Now, it's far colder than that today, much like Reagan's second inauguration.
Yeah, I'd say it's wise to move that inauguration inside, much like they did President Reagan's back in 1985. That's the last time it was this cold. It was a lot colder then, though. It was 7 actual degrees. Today, with temperatures hovering in the lower 20s.
But we know wind chill matters, and with the wind chill, it felt more like 10 degrees during that ceremony today. And with these freezing temps, a lot of people stay indoors to keep warm, but for people who work outside, they have to approach the weather differently.
Our Meryl Hubbard speaks with the local Madison moving company to see how they cope with the cold.
It feels like negative 13 degrees outside, but people here in Madison know how to keep things moving.
It's challenging, but you'll get over it, you know? All you gotta do is wear those layers.
Big dog movers are lifting heavy and thinking warm thoughts in the cold.
I'm a positive person, so I try to keep my mind positive.
Carlton Burke has been working for Big Dog Movers for the past year, but this is his first Wisconsin winter on the job.
I'm really out here trying to get this job done and get out the weather. But other days like this, I just take it like I'm at the gym, you know? working out, getting my cardio right, like I said.
It's that positive attitude that the big dogs say gets them through every move.
Well, it's kind of nice to get out versus being cooped up inside, getting out, being active, and actually staying busy.
Mike Nicola, owner and operator of Big Dog Movers, says the winter is usually a slow season for business, so they are picking up every package they can, no matter the weather.
The housing market doesn't pause for inclement weather, so we've got work to do, whether rain, sleet, or snow. We just dress accordingly.
Reporting in Madison, Merrill Hubbard, News 3 Now.
Well, the city of Madison says the sub-zero temperatures tomorrow morning could lead to delays in trash and recycling pickup. If Tuesday is trash and recycling pickup day for you, here's what you can do to prepare. Have your carts ready for pickup by 6:30 in the morning. Keep them out even if they aren't collected tomorrow, and the city will get to them by Wednesday. Remember, if Mondays are when your trash is typically picked up, this applies to you since MLK Day delayed that by a day. A man in custody after a fatal shooting in Geneva, that's in Walworth County. A little before 2:30 this morning, officers were called to Lincoln Avenue for a report that a young man had been shot. The man was taken to a hospital where he later died. Police say Stephen Merkel Jr. of Lake Geneva was arrested in connection with the shooting. He's charged with first-degree reckless homicide.
Removing fluoride from drinking water is on the agenda for the DeForest Village Board tomorrow. The Public Services Committee voted 5-2 last month in favor of removal. Some board members argue that keeping fluoride in the water is not safe, citing a Washington Post opinion piece and also ruling by a California judge against the FDA. According to the CDC, the mineral has been shown to reduce tooth decay. Fluoride has been in drinking water across the country for over 75 years. Voters in Whitewater will decide whether or not to fund new police officers and firefighters for the city. A referendum on the April 1st ballot will ask voters to increase the tax levy by $1.3 million. Those funds will add 5 new police officers, a dispatcher, 2 cross-trained firefighters, as well as equipment. City officials say the referendum is necessary as Whitewater continues to grow and demand for services increase.
After the break, Alex tells us when we could see some warmer weather.
And TikTok is back online in the U.S. Why the app's future may still be up in the air. That's next.
You're watching News 3 Now at 10.
Well, TikTok is back online after a weekend outage, but its future in the U.S. remains uncertain.
The law banning it, barring sale to a non-Chinese buyer, is still in effect, but the company credits President Trump for allowing them to still operate. The president says he plans to issue an executive order to delay the ban and give TikTok more time to change ownership.
If he issues an order, what he will basically have to say is that the companies that are charged with implementing the law won't be fined. If I'm the general counsel of those companies, I do not like this situation right now.
Trump's actions around TikTok could face court challenges. Republican Senators Pete Ricketts and Tom Cotton say there's no legal basis for an extension of the ban's effective date. Politicians in both parties argue saving TikTok would require a new law.
Well, there could soon be picket lines at one of the nation's largest retailers. 18,000 Costco workers are preparing for a potential strike in 5 states, including Wisconsin. Now, members of the Teamsters Union authorized a strike unless a new deal is reached before January 31st. Workers are asking for better wages and benefits, and if the strike goes forward, it would begin February 1st. It's important to note, though, that these tactics are used often and work with Teamsters. A year and a half ago, 97% of UPS union workers voted to authorize a strike, but 2 weeks before the deadline, a deal was reached to avoid it. Nothing Bundt Cakes, one of my favorites, will soon require stores to be open on Sundays. The bakery chain had given franchise owners the option of being closed on Sundays, but corporate reversed the policy, upsetting some franchise owners. Nothing Bundt Cakes said it would consider exceptions for stores open less than 6 months.
Well, if you're planning a trip to Europe this year, there are some new visa requirements for travelers. As of January 8th, Americans traveling for less than 6 months to or through the United Kingdom will need what's known as an electronic travel authorization. Now, that's basically a digital registration to get into the UK. All U.S. citizens traveling need to apply through the UK government website or through the app on their website. Travelers must fill it out and pay a fee for the authorization before their trip.
Once you're approved, it's good for 2 years, so you don't have to keep filling out the form.
Later this year, the European Union will also be rolling out new travel forms. It's called ETIAS, and when those go into effect, they'll cost about $7.70.
Well, you probably don't think about the tires on your car very often, but choosing the right set is pretty important for safety. Every year, Consumer Reports tests hundreds of tires, check this out, in all types of conditions to find out which perform the best. The organization says for cars and small SUVs, the Michelin Defender 2 gets the highest overall score. The tire received high marks for braking, hydroplaning resistance, noise, and it has a tread life of 100,000 miles.
Those are the things that should mean something to you because they could prevent you from getting in an accident. The tires, I would argue, is one of the most important parts of the vehicle system. So making sure that they are in tip-top shape is radically important.
2 other Michelins received the highest ratings for mid-sized SUVs and sports cars. And when it comes to trucks, the Continental Terrain Contact HT takes the top spot.
Dangerously cold weather is expected to last through tomorrow.
But, and there's a but, warmer temperatures are on the horizon. Chief Meteorologist Alex Harrington tells us when.
I'm looking forward to showing you how warm those temperatures are going to get, but not before the really, really cold stuff, which we've been forecasting for days now, saying Tuesday morning is going to be it. And Tuesday morning, tomorrow morning, does look like it's going to be at the coldest of this latest batch of polar air across southern Wisconsin. As our system updates here right now, we have that extreme cold warning that goes in effect from midnight tonight till noon tomorrow. Then we'll likely allow those alert day conditions to expire as we slowly work out of our deep freeze. This is right now. It's minus 20. That's what it feels like in Madison, minus 25 in Lone Rock, nearly minus 30 to the north. This is dangerously cold air, and it's only 10 o'clock at night. We got a ways to go for the mercury to continue to drop and the wind chills to also to continue to drop. Actual air temperatures, minus 5 in Madison, minus 10 in Camp Douglas, and minus 10 to the north in Wautoma. We'll see these temperatures drop by at least another 5 to 10 degrees, with minus 3 in Mount Horeb, minus 5 up 151 in Sun Prairie. These temperatures, again, already mean business. Follow the dots here. This is the danger category down here. Tomorrow morning, we'll have those wind chill values between minus 20 to minus 35. We'll stay in the danger category clear till noon tomorrow. That's when the extreme cold warnings will be allowed to expire, likely, but we stay in that cautionary area throughout the day tomorrow. So limit those activities if you can tomorrow. If you folks do have to be outside again, it's good to take some breaks if you have that ability to allow that. Those actual wind chills tomorrow morning, future track minus 30 to 35 below zero. Wouldn't be surprised to see a couple isolated spots colder than that as we work towards Wednesday morning. Still very, very cold. Not dangerously cold, but uncomfortable. So you'll want to bundle up again on Wednesday. Overnight temperatures, the actual mercury will read minus 13 to minus 20 below zero across southern Wisconsin, and tomorrow we'll be lucky to do highs between 0 and 5 degrees. So another bitterly cold day. But we were saying there is hope on the horizon. Look at this. Here we go. By the time we get to Wednesday, we're already back up to 24. Temperatures at or just a little bit above normal for a change for the next 10 days. So we go from this bitter cold right back up in the mercury readings here. It's that roller coaster ride once again, but at least we'll stay consistent. With the temperatures increasing on Wednesday, a little light snow breaking out in the morning hours, sticking around for, let's say, Madison 151 and points to the south and east have the best chances as we go a little bit later. Maybe a dusting to an inch, but it will be fighting that dry air just like our last snow. So we'll be keeping an eye on this. These numbers dusting at most might be all we get if that dry air wins over the snow trying to fall. And that's it. I was mentioning a little bit earlier in the 6 o'clock newscast, we talk a little bit about our current snow drought. If we do not get any more snow, this is not good. We've only had snow 3 days this entire month of January that has only amounted to 0.6 inches, meaning just under an inch. This may very well go down if we don't get snow here in the next week and a half as one of the least snowiest Januaries on record.
And still to come in sports, Giannis continuing to prove that he is one of the best in the world. The hardware he brought home this time, next on News 3 Now. Wisconsin men's hoops has not lost in a long time. The winners of 7 straight moved up 6 spots in the AP Top 25 this week, slotting in as the 18th ranked team in the nation. On Saturday, the Badgers beat USC by 15 on the road and did it behind a blast of John Blackwell buckets. The sophomore point guard scored 27 points, make that 28 points, his third time touching that number this season. And to Greg Gard, for Blackwell, it's all about his maturity.
I've said all along since the day he came in as a freshman that he wasn't a freshman in terms of his mentality and his approach and how he views things. He's very mature and, has a great disposition about him.
Well, Wisconsin men's basketball, they're out in L.A., so they could not give back in Madison today, but they were nice enough to help out the L.A. community, which they pointed out have gone through some deep struggles in these last couple of weeks, and were happy to be able to give back on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And the Wisconsin women in Nebraska trying to get one going. Sarah Williams down low. She scored 20 points in this one, but was really the only highlight for the Badgers. End of the first half. They'd get a buzzer beater 3 to go. That's Tess Myers. Game high 20 for Sarah Williams, but the Badgers, they lose big. Nebraska takes it 91-60. That's 8 straight losses for Wisconsin. Staying on the basketball floor, the Bucks are brewing something special. They've won 7 of their last 8, and this week went a perfect 4-0. The driving force behind the surge, of course, is Giannis, as always, and for his efforts, he was named the Eastern Conference's Player of the Week. He averaged 32 points a game this past week, in line with his MVP candidate-worthy stats this season. It was another week, another sweep for Wisconsin women's hockey. On Saturday, in an 11-1 win over St. Thomas, Layla Edwards had a hat trick in the first period. She finished the game with 4 goals on 4 shots. And to no surprise, Layla was the WCHA Forward of the Week. That was just a no-brainer for her. Her teammate, Ava Murphy, was named the WCHA Defender of the Week. That comes after a 5-point weekend, a mark that led all defenders. And we couldn't leave you without the college football playoff national championship game score. For a second season in a row, a team from the Big Ten was named national champions. Ohio State beats Notre Dame 34-23 for the Buckeyes. It's their first national title since 2014. We'll be right back.
New tonight. Let's take a look at Trump's official inaugural portrait. Yeah! Colbert's all new post-inauguration. CBS tonight.
Well, we are all looking forward to getting out of this deep freeze. It is unreal out there.
Us pets too. I've got a pet that does not like being out in this, and we got to also take care of them as well with this dangerously cold weather that will be here. Really the core, the thick of this will be tomorrow morning, minus 35 below, wind chills. Wouldn't be surprised to see an isolated between minus 35 and minus 40 below wind chill well north of Madison, but that's all dangerously cold air. Exposed flesh can freeze in as little as 10 minutes again, folks. So we want you to take this very, very seriously. Eventually we work out of this, though. By the time we get to the upcoming weekend, we will bask, and I literally say bask, in temperatures in the 30s.
It'll feel really warm.
No kidding.
And keep in mind all those school closures. Keep an eye on those at the bottom of your screen. Folks, thanks for joining us for News 3 Now at 10.
We'll see you tomorrow.